It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Welcome to our show, the Man in the Arena podcast. Historically, the phrase the man in the arena was first used by Theodore Roosevelt in the quote that I just gave you from a speech that he delivered at the Sorbonne in Paris on April 23, 1910, and was originally titled Citizenship in a Republic. While this is the portion of the speech that is often referred to as the Man in the Arena speech, President Roosevelt continued on with several lines that I've always felt should be included with the previous quote. He stated, "The man who does nothing cuts the same sordid figure in the pages of history, whether he be a cynic, a fop, or a voluptuary. There is little use for the being whose tepid soul knows nothing of great and generous emotion, of the high pride, the stern belief, the lofty enthusiasm, of the men who quell the storm and ride the thunder. Well for these men if they succeed, well also, though not so well, if they fail, given only that they have nobly ventured and have put forth all their heart and strength. It is war-torn Hotspur, hard spent with hard fighting, he of the many errors and the valiant end, over whose memory we love to linger, not over the memory of the young lord who, but for the vile guns, would have been a valiant soldier." With that poetic introduction, I would like to officially say hello. My name is E.J. Cox. I will be your host here on the Man in the Arena podcast. I have a passion for history which stems all the way back to my youngest years. I can remember being in the second grade and sitting in my teacher's class, Mr. Edward Ziegler. And Mr. Ziegler every Friday would have what he called Story Day. And that would include everything from us reading all these old books to listening to him tell stories, to us tell stories. But I always really appreciated the days that he would share stories from his childhood growing up in Gettysburg, Virginia. For those that are unfamiliar, Gettysburg was the site of the largest battle of the American Civil War, arguably the bloodiest battle ever fought on this side of the hemisphere. I would sit for hours and listen to him speak, and then finally, when I was in the fifth grade, we got to go to Gettysburg for the first time. And I was absolutely in love. After my first trip to Gettysburg, all I could think about was going back again. My love for history intensified. I began reading books and, of course, watching as many history movies as I could, particularly Gettysburg and Gods and Generals as a kid. When I was 15, I got introduced to the community of historical reenacting, and I was a full-blown addict. I just loved his reenacting. The fact that you could go out and dress in the uniforms and carry the guns and wear the equipment and teach people by doing things as close as we can to the way the men who lived them did, I just couldn't get enough of it. So naturally, when I graduated high school, I decided to go to college. And of course, I went to study history. In 2019, I graduated from The Ohio State University with a degree in military history and a minor in American Indian Studies. I also have worked for my state's historical society, both as a living history interpreter and as a school and teacher coordinator, and I would help to write curriculum for teaching kids from the first person. And in August of 2022, I began teaching a history class at my church titled God's Hand in History. This class in large part motivated me to start this channel. I want to share history with everyone and anyone I meet. So sit here with me in our study as we discuss the topics of history, theology, politics, and whatever else we come up with. As an academic and a historian, I've always felt that the words I have given you from Teddy Roosevelt summed up my opinion of how history should be taught. Too often, modern academics take the position of examining history with an air of superiority. They dismiss the great deeds done by great men and insert their own opinion of how events should have transpired and dismiss these deeds. Many of them never having been close to being in the same position or faced with the same circumstances. I desperately wish more historians realized this fact. I believe that amongst us professional historians, there has developed an attitude something similar to the food critic that has never cooked on a line in a busy kitchen. Many historians would recline and criticize the mistakes of the men of history, men like Washington and Roosevelt and Patton, from a position of great material comfort, without in the next breath admitting that they had accomplished something monumentally great at a supreme risk to their lives, not to mention their families' lives and livelihoods. We as historians should be content with simply recounting the facts of the case and working diligently to remove our own personal bias from our telling. We must remember that most of us have led very comfortable lives because of the pain and death of those who came before. We should be weary of cutting away the legs of the giants upon whose shoulders we stand. At this point in my career, I have very little tolerance left for those who do nothing but criticize great works done at a high price, when the most pressing problems they have faced are that their Starbucks order was messed up or that their Wi-Fi had a hiccup. These are people who are weak in their intellect and have something of a streak of yellow in their hearts, if we are being completely honest with ourselves. This feeling, for lack of a better term, is what has in part motivated the creation of this podcast. As we look into history, we look at it without overly criticizing the people of the past. We will acknowledge where something morally wrong has been done, of course, but we will also recognize the great deeds done. We will do our best to not vilify or lionize anybody. As we look at history, my goal is to show you what happened, expose you, my audience, to the facts of the case, and do my best to get out of the way and let you think and do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Unlike other academic and history podcasts, I believe not only in the right but the responsibility of you, my audience, to exercise your own freedom of thought. Lastly, but most importantly, the folks here at the Men in the Arena podcast and Appeal to Heaven Productions are Christians, and we are unashamed about that fact. We do aim to show in our academics where we find the hand of God present. It is the belief of myself and the production crew that God does exist and that we can find his touch in every facet of academics. In fact, you can go back in time and even see where theology itself was termed as the queen of the sciences, that everything stems from theology. We do believe in the sufficiency of Scripture for our lives and the life of our nation. We believe in the moral clarity and right thinking that can be cultivated in following Jesus Christ, and we rest in the assurance of our salvation. We aim to preach Christ to all men so that they who have an ear will turn from their wicked way and come to him and find rest and rescue from hell and the grave. On that note, I am once again your host, E.J. Cox, and I leave you this invitation to subscribe, like, and comment. Also, be sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. Please come and follow us on this academic adventure. Godspeed.